set up and gotta just... Okay, and... Alright. What are you doing?
Cracking nuts.
No, we're about to film.
I'm ready, let's do it.
We're not doing the naked idea anymore. And we're recording.
Okay, we're recording. Alright, you ready?
Hi. I don't know how to start this.
So first, let's...
Wait. Okay. Hi. Welcome to our home.
Uh-huh.
We're starting a podcast. Right?
We're starting a podcast.
For those of you watching on YouTube, this is our house. This is a piece of our house. For those of you just listening, I think we're going to post this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
We'll post it as many places as we can, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, some of them cost money, but...
Really?
Yeah. I think so. So there's like a monthly subscription fee or something like that.
Yeah.
Welcome to our janky-ass setup.
It's pretty good, though, man. We got some U of A equipment.
Yeah,
so.
None of this is ours.
Yeah, we actually only own... Well, let's see. We own these books and the pod underneath, and we own the stand, but that's it. We don't own the microphone, the camera, or the computer. So...
Yeah. Or ourselves. That's Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus owns my body. And we found this couch on the street, too.
Yeah, we did. We found this couch on the side of the road.
It all just kind of worked out. This was here. The bookshelf was here, too.
So, yeah.
All right.
Obviously, the logical idea to come after that is starting a podcast. Or something.
That's what we're doing. Okay, so...
Anyway,
so let's start from the beginning.
The name of the podcast is Who Knows Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. That's right. That's right. I agreed to that. I like that name.
Yeah.
So let's...
Do you like that name?
So let's start with just talking about, like, the listener, I guess, will learn about us and what we think through conversation. So let's just start out with why we're doing a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, this is our first podcast. My name is Nina. I'm 21, and I use she, her, hers. Pronouns, I don't know. I mean, what else is there to say?
We'll get to it.
Yeah. I am a college dropout.
Should have started with that. Nina Flores, college dropout.
Yeah, that's like kind of my defining characteristic right now.
It's kind of a cool thing.
I'm recovering from some mental health stuff, and I'm starting to get better, and I am feeling much more, like, I don't know, more ready to start doing things new, and I think that's kind of the topic of this first podcast is starting new things, and just kind of like our fears, our worries, our excitements.
Yeah.
For this podcast specifically, and just in general, like, what it takes to start something new emotionally, and what's, healthy way to think about it, I guess.
Like, this is one way to, like, work on your posture as well. Yeah, so...
So, go ahead, your name.
So, I'll introduce I'm Ivan, and I'm not a college dropout, but I'm almost a college dropout. And
he's almost a college graduate.
Almost a college graduate. Undergraduate.
Woo!
Woo. So, yeah, that's not that important. I don't know why I incorporated that. So,
that's important. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
Don't discount.
It took a lot of time. It took a lot of time.
4 years,
Yeah, it took a lot of time. But I'm more interested in other things now. So, I do a little bit of music. I do a little bit of martial arts. And I do a little bit of baking. And I am interested in doing more gardening. I'm interested in doing some film stuff and this podcast so that we can explore questions we have about the world together and interact with an outside group of people while doing so.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, we're very, very poor. And I think in some ways poverty can be really isolating. And also we live in a climate that is just, I don't know, it's so hot. And so it's really hard to gather in spaces for free. It's hard to find people who are free to connect with. So we just kind of want to develop a bit of a community. And I mean, we have a lot of ideas that we want to do as far as businesses and stuff. And a lot of them involve the community and helping the community and helping people in poverty and just connecting people. And I think, sorry, I'll cut out my coughing.
You did.
And so we just kind of want to start developing a little bit of a community for ourselves. A community of people who can help each other, who can exchange art and knowledge. And
right. Yeah, like the goal always, I think, is to try and do something that's going to make things a little more fun for everybody.
Yeah, and easier
easier, a little more enjoyable. Have something that's enriching and fun to do. We want to have like a cafe and theater and library and material sharing center.
Yeah, and yeah, so I guess maybe we can talk a little bit about the purpose of this podcast as far as how we feel right now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, yeah, I mean, we could kind of talk about the expectations and stuff like that. So I guess we're young 20-somethings who don't really know a whole lot of anything, but have a lot of opinions at the same time.
Yeah, I feel that way. Yeah.
But we also just have a lot of questions.
For sure.
And so we're probably going to have people on who specialize in some field that we're interested in or we have questions about.
Actually, I could have some professors on. There are a few that I know who would be very willing to come on and who I would be very interested in.
Yeah, we should ask them. And so this is just kind of a place, in addition to forming a community, it's also just kind of a place for us to work things out. So getting into sort of some of our fears is I'm afraid of saying things that are ignorant or racist or sexist or whatever. And I think that's going to happen. And I don't mean it that way. Maybe I do and I'm just being an asshole and please call me out. So I guess this is just kind of, I don't know. This is a place for us to learn. This is a place for everybody who's listening to learn.
Right.
And we're posting on forum like YouTube where comments are available.
Yeah.
And we will be reading those. We're gonna.
Oh yeah, that's the why else would you publicize something if you weren't willing to receive feedback about it?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, maybe sometimes you just want to share.
Yeah.
And
personal expression for fun.
Maybe for fun and. I don't know. I mean, it's challenging to do something like this.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's enriching in its own way. And
right.
And sometimes maybe you don't want feedback. Maybe you're just doing what you're doing, regardless of what other people think, and you're posting it because you think other people might enjoy it. And that's kind of how I feel about the podcast in general. Is you and I have conversations all the time anyway.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a fun project, I suppose.
I mean, but for the sake of enriching your own knowledge and all of that stuff, I think it's good to interact with people, right?
Yeah.
And the thing, about being sexist and racist and whatever it is, being inconsiderate of other people's experiences and knowledge, basically just voicing ignorance.
Yeah.
is something that's kind of inevitable in speech, because you can never, unless you're being very cautious and you're very educated and you're very knowledgeable on the topic that you're trying to address, which by nature of, I think, our podcast, being that we want to encompass so much material, is kind of impossible even if we were experts on something.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, so this podcast is going to be kind of, I mean, like I said before, like, we don't really know a lot of things. So it's just going to be talking about wherever we are in life. It's going to be talking about whatever we feel, whatever we're, like if we're in a funk that week, we're going to talk about being in a funk.
Yeah. And like when it comes to addressing things like race and stuff like that, I think it's important that you kind of voice your ignorance, even if it's true. Like, voice your opinion, voice how you feel, so that we can talk about it, so that like somebody can correct what I say. You know what I mean? Because if I'm just like, oh no, we're not going to talk about anything like that. We're not going to talk about race. We're not going to talk about gender or sex or anything like that. Then we never get to addressing it, and we never get to correcting the areas where things are kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
That's how I feel that. So like, just, you got to let your nuts hang and be open to criticism.
Yeah. You're metaphoric.
Yeah.
Nuts hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel that way too. And, we're, yes, technically, in America, like, we're really poor, but in a lot of ways, like, we're still so lucky. Yeah. And we're still so privileged. And so, like, you and I are both healthy.
Yeah.
You and I are both able-bodied. You and I both speak English. You and I, we don't have an accent.
Yeah, dude.
All of our family lives in the U.S.
I mean, like, there are, I think one thing, sorry, did I interrupt you?
Well, just let me finish the thought. I guess it's like, and so, like, a lot of times we are going to be speaking from our privilege because that's all we know.
Yeah,
and
of course.
That's kind of a scary thing, acknowledging that you're ignorant, but then maybe not necessarily at the moment having the tools to fix it.
Right.
But eventually, again, with comments and with experts that we bring on, hopefully, I guess we can help try and get rid of some of the ignorance in ourselves and learn how to be, because ultimately it's just about, like, learning how to be more compassionate and sensitive and confident in certain ways.
Yeah. I think if you're actually serious about being more compassionate, then you have to be willing to make a few mistakes.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to, like, put yourself out there in a vulnerable position to where people can tell you. Because, and also the other thing you mentioned about privilege, like, one thing because the word privilege is kind of it's kind of a hot word lately. And I think a lot of people, like, especially my, like, whiter friends, don't really
more conservative.
Like, they think like white privilege is just the only kind of privilege that there is. Like, it refers specifically to the racial privilege that exists, right? And so there are lots of privileges, like, that you can. It's a privilege is, like, in my view, anything that you can have that other people don't necessarily have. So it's kind of anything.
Right.
In your life, like a place to fucking live.
Yeah, or mental health.
That's a human fucking right, but it's also a privilege. It's also a position where we are ignorant to the experiences of people who are living on the streets.
Yeah. During the summer, hot.
During the summer here.
Degrees.
You can only hang out in the fucking library for so long before they kick you out.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, so this podcast is going to be a bit of us talking about our perceived injustices, as well as trying to figure out ways and recognize ways that, like, we are doing injustice on others, or, like, are just, like, really privileged. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's part of it.
This podcast is both being grateful and figuring out and addressing the things that are still wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of fucked up shit to talk about.
Yeah.
plenty of things that are fucked up in the world, plenty of questions, plenty of like things to try and answer that are worth thinking about.
Yeah. And I think also it's just important to recognize that everybody suffers, and nobody's suffering erases anybody else's. Some people's suffering is very, very severe, and we have the ability to address it and change it. And that's maybe why, I don't know, why certain things are talked about in politics, for example, like, people who are incarcerated wrongfully, like that's really important, but that doesn't mean that some person who's not incarcerated isn't also suffering. So I guess what I'm saying is like,
yeah, what are you saying?
Anything that we say on this podcast is not meant to erase somebody else's.
For sure.
Because so that's kind of one of our fears is like, we don't want to start complaining about something and invalidate other people's feelings.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, but that's I feel that way too. Like inside, and also just personally feel a little like frightened to share my own opinion and be like personally criticized.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just like a hard thing to go through.
Yeah,
it's kind of a hard thing to go through. Like, oh man, like I guess that was kind of a dumb fucking thing to say, or kind of an inconsiderate thing to say, or I'm kind of an asshole in our interaction, or whatever. Like, anytime you're putting yourself in a platform where people are going to analyze closely what you're saying.
Yeah.
But that's such a good thing. That's such a beneficial practice. So, and it's really like, if we're talking about trying to reach more common ground when this like really polarizing political time and all of those things, talking I think is the most important thing, because you have to come out and say those things that are like potentially dumb. Like, when you ask a question, you come from a position of ignorance.
Yeah.
And when you intend, you even come from a position of ignorance, because you don't know what's on the other end of the answer.
Yeah.
So that's a little frightening. You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know whether you're going to be this or that. So we have to accept that, like, already that we're in a position of like impurity or whatever. Yeah. And that's fine, because everybody is, man.
Yeah, I think that idea of the process of learning is a really vulnerable process.
Yeah.
But and so is the state of being ignorant. Like that's really vulnerable. I was messaging a friend a couple weeks ago, and they were asking me, like, because I'm starting to educate myself a little bit on like history and stuff like that. And they asked me, like, what sparked your interest in history? And my response was basically like, I look around me, I look at this world around me, and I don't know where anything came from.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, the only reason I'm able to live in this environment is because we have AC, well, a swamp cooler, but because we have a cooling system in our house. And I don't know how that works. So my ability to even be alive in this place right now depends on so many things that I just have no idea. And right. I feel vulnerable because of that. Like, that things can be so easily taken away from me, or other people can control my life because I don't know how to take care of myself.
One, it's predicated on so much technological advancement.
Right.
Two, it's predicated on so much historical, like, passing.
Yeah.
So, like, the style of everything, the method of construction, the, like, all of that stuff. Like, I was saying that outside when we were doing laundry, too. I was like, I don't know how this fucking thing works. Like, I know very basically on a theoretical level how electricity works.
Yeah.
And I know there's a big metal fucking drum in here, but I don't know how they cast it. I don't know how they, like, mold it. I don't know how it's manufactured.
Yeah.
I don't know how it got here.
Yeah.
Well, presumably by a truck or an aircraft or something. I don't know how aircraft work.
A fucking wheelbarrow.
I know very basically how those kinds of things work, but, like, somehow that's kind of the thing with globalization, right? Maybe that's a topic we should get into next podcast, like this expanding thing. Like, we're relying on stuff that's coming from thousands of miles away, being constructed with technology that we may never know how it works.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like our lives and what we rely on has been really delocalized. Like we're talking about going and buying a car recently, right?
Yeah, we don't have a car. We've been taking public transit,
public transit, yeah, which is like
it's not great.
It kind of sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
But like a car, that's another huge example, like of all this manufacturing and technology and machinery that is totally foreign to me.
Yeah.
I know a little bit, like I can look at the parts and kind of name them, but I don't really know how it all works as one system. I know the pistons go and that turns the axle, but
yeah, it just feels irresponsible almost, and it just feels
to be ignorant to those things. Yeah, that you count on.
Yeah, and
it's almost as if you can't quite appreciate them as much either if you don't know how they work.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, and I mean this is why it's I'm going to talk probably bashing a bit the school system, but
it's 20 minutes. Let me change the video.
Oh, okay. I'm going to pause. I'm going to talk probably bashing a little bit the school system, but
bashing.
I mean, it's so important to learn about the world around you. And so I guess I would say like the school system is separate. The system itself is separate from like knowledge acquisition or for example, like it's hard. Yeah, like it's hard to appreciate the earth if you don't know how complex it is, if you don't know how big it is, if you don't know anything about the animals on the earth. It's hard to appreciate a sunset when it's such a given, when it happens every day.
Sometimes.
And we're very like lucky to live in the desert where we have beautiful sunsets. And I think like that happens because of a really complex process.
Yeah. There's kind of another side of things too, though, that I just want to bring up. So like two things with what you said, because you kind of covered a lot.
Yeah.
I think that like with institutions, we should always be critical. We should always be very harsh and critical. Be fair.
Yeah.
But fucking critical, because we want to get the most that we can out of things, and we want to be like. We want to make sure that nobody's getting squashed and that, these institutions, because as an institution, it has that kind of, like, ability to kind of control people's lives. So we should be critical of institutions like government and school and shit like that.
Because, like, the reason why those things are there are to help the public.
To help the public, right.
And if it's not helping the public, we need to change it.
We need to maximize, at least try and maximize it.
Yeah.
It's fucking failing. I mean, maximization is kind of like out the window at this point. It's kind of more just like, it's kind of fucked up and not really helping anybody. But then...
Not that it's helping nobody, but...
Yeah, I'm using a hyperbole.
Right.
But, and then with the sunset too, it's like, there's kind of, it's like with art, right? Like there's two ways in the context of this conversation of appreciating it. Right? And that's... like, I can look at something and see it and just kind of, like, feel how much I like it. And just kind of, like, be like, wow, like, that's a beautiful sunset. Man.
Yeah.
Like, I feel that shit in my heart.
Yeah.
Or, you can think about how technical it is. Think about, look at the stroke. Look at all of the detail. Look at the heart that's been put into it. Look at the
Hi, Beans. We have a couple pooches.
They'll be on video eventually.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it on the video right now.
Probably not.
For viewers watching, but he gets upset. He just starts crying when he needs loved ones.
He's gonna start crying. Maybe I'll move his bed if he cries again.
Yeah.
Because that thing's on it. Maybe he doesn't want to lay on the paper.
There's a piece of paper on his little mat.
These fuckers won't even eat bugs.
Beans, people all over the world eat bugs for food.
You're spoiled, even for a dog.
Oh, Beans, woe is me. Woe is me.
So.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of... So let's bring it back. Well, you go ahead.
So, yeah, and I think the kind of appreciation that I'm talking about with understanding how something works is... maybe, to me, something that's a little bit more permanent, because what you're talking about is just like an opinion, or it's like a preference.
It's emotional.
Sort of thing. It's like, oh fuck, I really love chocolate ice cream. But when you understand how that chocolate ice cream got to your bowl, that's a whole nother level of appreciation.
Well, I think when you focus your mind on something, you can feel more appreciation towards it. Whether it's understanding the technical aspect of it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but although...
But what I'm saying is, like, if you understand how much work and how much energy goes into creating something, you appreciate it so much more. It's like when somebody makes food for you, right? Mm-hmm. Like if somebody just slaps something together and there's no love in it and whatever, it could taste really, really good, but you would appreciate it so much more if they spent time into it.
Yeah.
And they told you, I made this for you.
Or if you spend time on it too. Mm-hmm. If you spend time tasting it, if you spend time observing it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know? There's a personal investment that goes into it, and there's more
but again,
psychological energy there.
I feel like when the appreciation comes from something outside of you, I feel like that's so much deeper and so much more permanent.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can sit there and eat a tamale and be like, wow, like, feel all these different textures and all of the flavors.
Far. Yeah.
But I don't know, like, if you know how much work it takes to make a tamale, like, to me, like, because that's outside of my experience, and that's something that I didn't do, and that somebody did for me.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm much more moved by that than
I feel
what
that
I
too.
created in my head.
I feel that too. And even if you just think about the biological process, like corn growing and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's kind of like mass manufacturing, and there's probably some bad stuff involved in that, but...
yeah.
But yeah, like you think about the whole process, the whole, like everything. So let's bring it back.
Yeah.
Right? Let's bring it back to why we're having this podcast. I think what we've just talked about now is kind of a good exemplar of like why. It's trying to get a greater appreciation, a stronger foothold. Become more enlightened on things we are not, which is a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know? And
then, again, so just to kind of develop a community, I've become a little bit jaded, I think, after a couple of experiences in my life. I have much less appreciation for other people, I think, and I'm much more cynical when it comes to other people. And maybe that just comes with life, but I'm trying to not be so harsh. And I think talking these things out and then seeing other people interact with what I'm saying will kind of help me keep myself accountable in me trying to be like a compassionate person.
Yeah, dude.
So I guess just kind of another fear. We have a couple notes if you see me looking down at the computer.
So we don't get too off.
Yeah.
Failure, wasting time.
So yeah, I mean...
self-worth.
So, I don't know, do you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah, the actual voice thing. And
why don't you take that? Because that was kind of...
That's kind of my thing, yeah. Maybe you don't feel that way, because you've sung your whole life, right?
Yeah, I mean, I never really recorded myself, but I've been doing some film and recording myself for, I don't know, a couple months now, almost a year.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of over it. I'm like, yeah, I look fat on camera, whatever.
You don't look fat.
Thanks. So the next sort of fear is it's like insecurities about your body and voice. Yeah.
So I'm trying to do my best to like keep it real here, like to like not stray too far from what I would say normally, because I want to be honest with this kind of thing. But I have a little bit of trouble doing that in that I feel a little like, you know, it's just like that thing when you hear your fucking voice on a recording and you're like, oh, is that what I sound like? What the fuck? Like, because in your head, like it echoes around in your brain a little more.
Like what you said? Or what do you mean?
I mean the literal sound in your head. You sound different to yourself than to other
Oh,
people.
yeah, I see what you mean.
Because the voice, you hear the resonance,
Yeah.
you know, and the vibration in your like bones and stuff
Mm-hmm.
at the same time. So like, I might think like, oh, I have a cool voice, like I have or something.
Do you think that?
I don't know, not necessarily, but like,
I'm a cool guy.
but you might not think, oh, I sound like that, or something.
What
or
is
it just
that?
catches you off guard, like that's what I sound like.
Yeah.
Or you see, there's an episode of Louis. Which I get, he's been banned, but
Cry, sad for
was,
some people.
was absolutely one of my favorite comedians, and now I can't enjoy him because he was jacking off in people's faces, which is really not cool.
Yeah.
Really not cool, dude. And I mean, he I think has been pretty severely burned by it.
Yeah. I mean,
So
he's
he's-
gonna do just fine. He's got plenty of money.
Oh yeah, he'll be fine, but still, it's like
Socially burned.
it was you know he's done for.
Yeah.
And I guess I supported that too, but because you can't fucking jack off in people's faces,
I know.
man. That's like, dude,
Bruh.
like you got to control yourself, man.
Go to therapy.
But there's an episode of that where he like goes into a store to buy a TV or something, and the security guard is showing him an angle of himself, and it's a different actor. Like, you know, it's a different actor. It's like
Yeah.
a completely different, weird-looking person.
Uh-huh.
He's like, is that what I look like?
Yeah.
And it's this weird, almost like it's just like an uncanny thing a bit to hear your own voice played back to you. You know,
Yeah.
and when it sounds just a little different.
That's what's weird about some of these technological advances is like you get to see parts of yourself, literally see parts of yourself that you can't see yourself
Yeah.
without it.
Yeah.
Like, or hear certain things that you wouldn't be able to hear without it.
Yeah.
And that can create all kinds of weird insecurities. Like, oh, that's what my like side profile looks like. Gross. You
Yeah.
know? And
Like, whoa.
like, oh, whoa! I thought I looked like this. That's how I looked in my head.
Right. So it's just that kind of thing. Like, oh, is this mannerism that I do abrasive to people, or
Yeah.
is it like obnoxious?
This mannerism that I did.
Yeah, this mannerism. I won't do that because I'm a male, but
Anyway.
I would.
Did
If, I
distract
would
you?
if we were alone. But so yeah, it's just that kind of thing. But I'm feeling now that like if I just jump into it and sort of like let your nuts hang. Like I wish there was a more like a sex inclusive way that I could say that. Like let your body hang as it does,
Ooh.
and allow those who are uncomfortable with that to voice their opinions as well. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Be comfortable with how people are uncomfortable with you.
Uh-huh.
Because
Yeah, like if you're gonna do what you're gonna do, you have to also let other people do what they're gonna do and
because
feel what they're gonna feel.
exactly, and you got to do what you're going to do. You got to be who you're going to be.
Yeah.
Right now, I can't just be like, oh, I'm somebody who is like very morally upright and good and doesn't swear, or like, or I mean, well, actually, fuck that. But just like,
Or even the opposite, like, oh, I'm a hard-hitting,
sure,
swearing,
just pretending like
white man.
pretending like you're the person who you idealize,
Yeah.
instead of just being what feels comfortable
Yeah.
and what you would say.
Uh-huh.
And like that might, you know, like me saying nuts hang so many times
I know.
might let somebody nuts hang. Like somebody might be like, okay, dude, you said it like 6 times now.
Yeah.
But it's just like the way I'm expressing myself about this particular thing, and like kind of fuck you if you're uncomfortable with that,
Uh-huh.
but also kind of like if that is
Like, I'm sorry,
legitimately
also.
uncomfortable for you.
Mm.
I mean, you know, I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable, obviously.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like trigger somebody whose abusive father used to say, "You got to let your nuts hang," like all
Yeah.
the time, like 6 times during a podcast
Yeah.
when they were a kid. But and I just brought that memory back. Like
Fucking A.
they're gonna like. But,
That's too real.
but
And that's definitely a worry, but
but that's how it is. Like
Yeah.
when you're a person in the world, and there are other people in the world, which is obviously true. You bump into each other a little bit.
yeah.
And we gotta be cool with that.
Yeah. Acknowledging that arguments are going to happen and hurt feelings are going to happen, and you just have to learn how to be gracious
Work through it.
in those difficult situations and be sensitive. And I think the tricky thing also is in those situations, it's learning how to do that, but also retaining your like self-respect, which is such a like maybe a strange thing to say, but like you can't sacrifice who you are. Excuse me. You can't sacrifice who you are just to please other people, but at the same time you have to be respectful. So it's just this like really weird dance, and sometimes there's more push than pull, and sometimes there's more pull. And again, I mean that just comes with like with growing up and learning, and we're going through that right now, and I think also just like I don't know, like you and I help each other with that as well.
Oh yeah, relationships are a huge push and pull. Push and pull, I think, is a really good way to characterize a lot of things.
Yeah. And
especially like with some of the martial arts, I don't want to talk about that very much, but like
Ivan does martial arts. He does a couple different things. He does
Chinese particularly.
Yeah,
so
he does Shingi and Kaji Kimbo, which
yeah,
we can maybe get into that in another podcast.
We can talk about that another time.
It's some interesting stuff.
Yeah, because I don't want to get too sidetracked on that, but
yeah.
There is, in the Chinese philosophy, that idea of push and pull, that give and take that keeps things in balance.
Yeah.
And so if somebody says, like, hey, you're being racist, keep your ground, be yourself, remain yourself. You're not vilified, you're not villainized.
Yeah.
Because people fucking make mistakes.
Yeah.
If you're being racist, like, you probably don't want to hurt people. You're probably not a sadist. You know, if you are, fuck you. You know, but don't be a sadist. If you're really a psychopath, then you know.
You can be a Satanist.
Satanism is good. Sadism is not. But then
just thought I'd throw that one in there.
You just all you have to be is willing to listen, willing to really listen, and that's the hard thing. And I'm not saying I definitely don't do it all the time, man.
Yeah.
But
because what happens is your own perception of yourself, your own narrative of yourself gets in the way.
Gets disrupted.
Yeah, because other people are telling you, no, you're being a bad person, but the whole time you thought you were being a good person.
Like, oh, I thought I was a good person.
Yeah.
Obviously you think that. You haven't killed yourself yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, don't do it in the future either.
Shit. Let's try and refrain from talking about stuff like let's try and refrain from saying that kind of thing without a trigger warning, like in the beginning or something. Yeah. Anyway,
you are a good person because you're I mean, whatever.
No. Okay.
Morality is a little contrived.
Yeah, I would say you're not a good person, and that's okay because nobody's a good person.
That's a good.
You're just a person.
Yeah. Because
we gotta.
Okay, I'll just start another one right now.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way to put it. Like, then you're good. That's kind of hard to maintain. It's sort of like, you have no moral alignment. You're just somebody trying to get by, man. Like, you're just somebody...
And it's your decision whether or not you want to be a compassionate, decent person. Which most people do, I would say.
I think it's your decision whether you want to try.
Right.
That's what I think.
Yeah, that's true.
I think
because you can try all you want, but that doesn't necessarily mean you are something.
Yeah. That's all you can do is try, man.
Yeah.
But give it an honest effort.
Yeah. And even that's hard to say, like, yeah, I actually tried as hard as I could.
Did you actually try? Yeah. That's the hard thing. I don't
because, again, like, and we could kind of talk about this in another podcast.
Right, because we're already at 40 minutes. I don't know how entertaining this is so far.
Yeah. But, so, body insecurities,
Can I fix this? Did you want it the other way?
What? I didn't even know what it looked like.
It was just half in your shirt, half not.
Cute. Why am I so cute? Anyway, so body insecurities, you know, like seeing, and I think the other thing to say with that is like, I don't know, there's this movie that I really like called Stoker. It was one of my favorite movies when I was younger. You actually bought me DVD version.
I found that at Family Dollar.
Family Dollar, yeah.
Family Dollar, it was $5, which is surprising.
Every poor person's best friend.
It's a pretty good movie.
Yeah. A little violent. So if you're sensitive to violence and assault and stuff, like maybe don't watch it.
Maybe don't watch anything. Maybe you should just...
You can watch Teletubbies. Like shit.
Maybe you should just stay away from
You're telling me I can't watch Teletubbies if I'm... Okay, anyway.
There's some bizarre imagery in Teletubbies.
There's this particular part where she's at the park with this guy and she's talking about how that weird moment when you see a picture of yourself that's at an angle that you don't normally see, and that is you also.
Yeah.
And so it's just this kind of idea that, like, those things that you're insecure about, it's not about getting rid of them. It's not about masking them. It's about accepting that those are you too. And I think right, and I think that's kind of hard because I think a lot of our media, a lot of the people who we see just represented in general, who are like ideals, are often presented to us in a very, what's the word?
It's very
one-sided way. They're not complex characters, I guess I should say.
Yeah, it's kind of crafted.
Mm-hmm. And so when you have conflicting feelings, but you feel both of them, like a love and a hatred for something, it's hard for us to accept that. I mean, one, because our brains, as far as like the logic part goes, like it doesn't really work that way. But the reality is like we are both good and bad people, which makes us neither. Because you can't be a good person and a bad person, right?
And by what standard are you measuring?
Yeah, there's that aspect too, but it's like we all do good things, we all do bad things, and we all have good thoughts and bad thoughts, etc. And so, like, it's just, this is where I feel like identity is just so tricky because it's so unnatural to be just one thing.
I think...
No, go for it.
I know I have a tendency to do that. So...
I'm just kidding.
I think that identity is much simpler than we should think about it. I mean, in reality, it's really fucking complicated. But, like, as far as how we interact with our own idea of who we are, I think we should simplify things. I think we should say, I am what I do what I am. You know, like,
yeah, I thought you were going that way. Yeah.
You're just that's it. Like there's not really a big question here. It's kind of like, what's the meaning of the universe? It's like,
oh yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't do that.
It's kind of like, whatever you do,
yeah.
That's who you are. It doesn't matter why you did it is part of who you are too.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's just it. You are what you are and how you interact with the world, what you do, that's it.
Yeah, so I guess maybe thinking about this, like, we were talking about Louis C.K. for a second, like, I think it's really hard when you've personally been a victim of something, when you know people who have been victims. It's really hard to see them as both person. And I think that's why it's so heartbreaking, is because we think people who we idealize, like, they never do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Like, this is why at least maybe for you, like, maybe this is why the Louis C.K. thing is so heartbreaking. I think for a lot of people, it's like, you just never imagined that this person who you love, who you've grown up with, does something like that. And
yeah, I was something like that.
And that's this, and it was so surprising. Do you know what I mean? But, like, it's not weird. It's not a surprise if they do it. Do you know what I mean by that?
Because they are who they are.
Because
they did it.
Anything that happens,
I just didn't know about it. They're still the same person. I just saw a different side, right?
Right.
That's what we were saying, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, through, like, with this podcast, it is important to try and be as natural as we can in that, like, we don't want to say things that we wouldn't normally say, but at the same time, like, this is a different medium of expression. And so a different part of us is going to come out.
Yeah.
And so we
naturally.
shouldn't... Yeah, so, like, to other people who are viewing us, or maybe people who are watching this who know us, and they're like, whoa, like, why are they acting like that?
Yeah.
I guess it's just kind of like, this is also us. This is also me. This is also you. And
yeah.
I think that's okay, and it's interesting. You know?
Yeah. You think you know someone, and then you hear their podcast, and they're like, and you're like, what the fuck? Oh my god,
he says nuts a lot.
Like, did I just hear him say that he's gonna let his nuts hang out? That's, yeah. So,
and
yeah.
For those of you listening on Spotify, yes, we are naked.
For those of you, there's no video. Yes, we're naked the whole time.
Deal with
it.
Deal with it.
Deal with the nakedness. So, the thing about Louis C.K., a little more on that, I wanted to say some things.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, I mean...
We still have 15 minutes, 14 minutes.
We can make this as long as we want.
Before,
okay, this is my podcast.
Yeah, and if you're bored, you can switch it. There's actually a lot of really entertaining things on the internet.
Oh, yeah. Have you been?
Have you been? Yeah, I mean, just listen to some Joe Rogan or something, you know? Listen to some Joe Rogan, or... I don't want to name any other podcasts. That's the only one I want to name. Joe Rogan, if you hear this, I really enjoy your podcast.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say.
That's all you want to say to Joe Rogan?
See, and for a second...
Joe Rogan?
And for a second I was thinking, like, oh man, maybe he will hear this. And, like, maybe other people will hear this and they'll, like, tell Joe Rogan.
Wow.
I mean, we don't have any following, and I'm actually thinking, like, what if we get, like, super fucking famous, like, tomorrow? God. And Joe Rogan's like, hey man, what the fuck, what'd you say about my thing? And so...
Hey, come on my podcast. We'll talk about bro science.
Yeah. So we'll think about... I was thinking about, like, maybe I should say something a little smarter.
Yeah.
I just like your podcast.
Yeah.
But that's all I wanted to say. All I wanted to say was, Joe Rogan has a good podcast. I aspire to his podcast because he has knowledgeable people on there. He's an inspirational voice. Although he does have a lot of alt-right people on there that I totally disagree with, I think it's good to talk.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, most of them have their own platforms that they can...
Some of those guys are...
Like, they don't need more of a...
Especially Jordan Peterson. He's so popular already.
Didn't someone in your psych class do a presentation on Jordan Peterson?
Yeah, I don't want to get into it. Somebody did. But yeah, he's considered like a modern day...
Oh, shit. I moved this. Sorry.
He's like an intellectual celebrity.
Whatever that means.
Not according to me, but...
Who cares?
Okay, let's get into some other things. He's got his thing, that's fine. I'm not disparaging him as a person.
Yeah. So there's this other one that's pretty common when you start something new in general, and it's just this fear of disappointment. This fear of failure.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you feel this a little more than I do. What is it about failing that is such a deterrence to you?
I don't know. I'm just going to make some sounds with my mouth until I begin to say something that makes a little more sense.
Cute.
So, I think for me, it goes back a little ways into my childhood and things. So maybe we should save that for another podcast. That's like a whole hour-long thing.
Give like a...
But no, I could do it in a few minutes. So
hit me with that info.
The one thing is like you put time into something and you begin to care about it, and you want it to live so much. You want it to live, but it won't, and it just dies, and you feel no longer like you're the chosen one for this activity. You feel no longer like it is your destiny.
Interesting.
Like your dream was a falsehood. That is a little bit like, of the way I feel, it's a little bit like, because I dream really hard, and usually I don't act. Because I don't want those dreams to go away. I don't want that dream to become a false reality. I just want it to be a dream, and I want to feel its fuzziness and its dreamlikeness.
Because you're elated by just the dreaming.
I'm elated just by imagining things. I'm elated just by listening to music and thinking about shit.
And you don't want that ruined.
I don't want that to be ruined. But there is a greatness in like trying to actually do it and trying to and fucking failing. There's a greatness in failure.
What is that?
That's one of my fingernails.
Oh my god.
There's a huge greatness in fail. It's because I don't know.
Fine.
I bit it off.
You don't have to explain yourself.
Well, I'm not just covered in fingernails. I'm not just like get up and like, oh, let me get these like fingernails off of my shirt. But there's like a thing about failure that disrupts your fuzzy mental state. It's like, I could be that person. I'm just going to imagine that I am. I'm just going to, what would that fucking be like?
Yeah.
When you actually try and do it, you're like, oh, I actually don't really know how to do any of those things.
That's so interesting. To get attached to the dream itself.
Yeah.
To more like in its idea state.
So that let's just leave it at that for now. That pretty well sums. Other than I feel a little bit like I was discouraged as a child to like try very hard.
Yeah, you were met with pretty severe.
And I was
punishment when you did fail.
Yeah. I felt embarrassed often that I would fail. Like, we had these spelling things in class called...
spelling bees.
It's been wiped from my memory, but they were called something in particular. It was like, everybody in the class, it was like a fun thing. It was like Friday pizza. It was like pizza day activity, basically. It's kind of...
Doing educational games.
But all of the kids in the class really enjoyed it. And I hated it because I felt like there was this expectation on me to do something that I was not really comfortable doing and could not do well. So it's sort of like you want to be respected and revered by your peers. Like, not revered necessarily, but like you want to be respected and liked and shit.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a little kid.
It's kind of a self-worth thing. So like a lot of times, maybe when you're doing things, like your self-worth is wrapped up in whatever you're doing.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that brings us to the, maybe at this point, the final fear, which is just not valuing your own, just this like idea of self-worth and having enough self-worth to value your own opinion enough to speak it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't value their own opinion so much to the point where they, I think it, did it stop?
Made a sound. I think it died.
So much to the point where they feel like they don't even have any opinions. And, like, if you're human, you have an opinion. Yeah. So, just this idea that, like, I don't know, we in this, through this podcast, we're also just trying to learn how to value ourselves and value our own opinion. Whether other people listening value it is kind of another conversation.
Yeah.
But us learning how to speak truthfully.
Yeah. Yeah, like, you don't have to consider yourself really smart or like, really knowledgeable to value your opinion.
Yeah, that's true.
You know? Like, because regardless of whether you're an expert on something, you've lived in the world. And that itself is something. I mean...
Unless you're a baby and you should shut the fuck up.
Yeah, babies, you can shut the fuck up.
You don't know shit.
You don't even know what it's like to be a baby because you, like, barely even
You don't even have memory.
You can't even recount things.
Idiots.
Yeah. Okay, so except for babies...
Bitch-ass babies?
Yeah, so with the exception of babies...
Yeah.
Your opinion is pretty bad. And even kids. Even young kids.
Yeah.
So... Yeah, you mean, maybe you should close your mouth sometimes, like when somebody else obviously knows more than you, and you're just trying to preserve that feeling like your opinion is very valuable, when really you feel insecure about your opinion, and that's why you do it.
But just because somebody else is sharing something important doesn't mean that, again, like, what you say isn't valuable.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. You could, even if voicing your fucking ignorance is valuable sometimes.
Yeah, because again, like, it's an opportunity for you to learn.
Yeah, supposing
just if you're looking at it like that.
Supposing somebody else is willing to teach you, it is.
That's true.
And that's something that we should appreciate much more, I think, is when somebody's willing to tell you.
Yeah, it's not just a given, right?
Exactly.
Explaining something to somebody.
Yeah, especially when it comes to, like, how hard, like, black people in America have had it, how hard women have had it. Like, if somebody is taking the time to educate you on their experience, you should consider it a gift.
Yeah.
You should consider that a real treat, that somebody's, like, willing to take the time to educate your dumb ass on something. You know?
Yeah.
You should always respect teachers. That's a thing.
Yeah.
I think. Just so that you can listen better as well. Even if it's not, this ceremonial thing.
Yeah. And also, I think sometimes it's maybe hard to recognize when you're being taught something because you think you know the answer.
Yeah.
And so that's also just kind of another little, maybe big, I don't know, but piece of it also. Yeah. I guess last sort of thing, closing remarks maybe. If you have anything else to say, the sort of last thing that we maybe are just kind of thinking about through this is we're still developing who we are.
Yeah.
And I went through a pretty rough time, and I have never quite been able to develop my own interests. I've never been able to spend time really on myself. And so I don't really know who I am, and I'm learning how to be interested in things. And so this is just kind of another way for us to develop our identities and develop who we are as people.
Firstly, I totally agree with that. And then also, I just want to say I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Let's end maybe with things that we're kind of excited about.
I'm really excited to start talking some more and get into some more, like, juicy shit that's, like, a little less ambiguous. Some stuff that's a little more, like, specifically relevant.
Yeah.
Some more facts. Let's talk facts.
My boy and his facts.
Let's talk some facts, So yeah, I'm excited to talk about politics, to talk about religion, to talk about all kinds of things.
Maybe we should have called this podcast Facts and Feelings.
Facts and Feelings? That's pretty good.
Ooh, shit.
You came up with that.
She's so clever.
Facts and Feelings. Actually, that's a pretty good name for a podcast.
Thanks.
Okay, maybe we will call it that. Maybe not. Maybe we can just call the episode Facts and Feelings.
Oh, that's cute.
That would be good too.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm pretty excited. I hope that it,
Yeah, where
that
do
it goes somewhere.
What do you mean go somewhere?
Well, at first I was going to say, I hope that people like it. But then I thought, well, that's not necessarily a good thing. And then
I hope that people like it.
I hope people like it.
People listen to it and feel maybe a little less alone.
Yeah.
Because, like,
Me
the
too.
other thing is, like, yeah, like, we're busy people or whatever. I mean, everybody's fucking busy, but we want to prioritize you guys, our listeners, because, like, again, like, this is a community.
I feel a little weird saying that. Like, because there's literally no one else in the room. It's just the dogs, like, completely silent in here, and the camera that turned off because it's too fucking hot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, by the way, if you're watching, you're probably seeing some weird screen. It's because the camera overheated.
It overheated
and we don't have a backup.
It turned itself off.
Same.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, like, we're gonna have an email, and maybe we'll insert it into this podcast before we publish this.
Mm-hmm. Get questions.
Yeah, questions, comments, like, just like email us if you have a question, and if you don't want us to talk about it on air, that's fine. We'll just email you back. Like, just specify whether or not we'll keep everything anonymous. Just let us know if you don't want us to talk about it on air, and if you just want like one-on-one advice or something from us, like, email us if you're going through something. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, if
we're here, we're here for you guys, and we want to interact with you, and
yeah,
like, this isn't just about us like flapping our gums and shit.
It is for me.
You want it? You want it?
Oh, you don't care about our listeners?
Go.
No, if you like think ever, I say this to everybody I know.
Yeah.
Right now I say it, not that I say it all the time, but like I'm saying it now.
I just have so many friends, and I say it to everybody I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was sarcastic.
If anybody
LOL.
ever feels like I can offer some advice,
But hold on, I'm sorry, I choked in mine.
like if you think for whatever reason that like I might know something that can help you or anything, then always fucking ask it.
Yeah, DM us.
This is how we should be with each other, Like,
yeah.
Like, you should be comfortable asking something even if it's a little embarrassing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some things you should keep to yourself too. But also feel comfortable,
What are you talking about?
Sometimes it's also good to process things just yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you think that, but I'm comfortable talking with somebody about anything. I will talk about anything.
I mostly process things on my own, and then later bring things up a little bit, and then gather opinions that way. Some people like to gather opinions first and then do their thinking.
That's normally how I do it.
Yeah.
Like,
so,
I like to flap my gums to think. Yeah, I like to flap. And the flapping lets me generate energy.
Wow. Well, his nuts are hanging.
Hopefully they are. Well, they hopefully are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess, DM us on Instagram. We'll create an Instagram where we'll post some stuff. You guys can stay there to get notifications on when we post a new podcast. We're thinking about posting about 4 times a week, and you guys will kind of you'll see what we're gonna do.
You'll see.
Maybe you'll hate it. Let us know if you like it. Email us. Before I post this, I'll put in the description our email.
Yeah.
Because we haven't created it yet. Oh, actually, we have.
We did, yeah. So we'll insert it.
Yeah, we did.
We'll insert it. We already made it.
Who knows anyway?
Well, there's a link. There'll be a link. They can see it. So
Well,
yeah, what?
Well, is it Who Knows Anyway
I don't know.
podcast or Who Knows Anyway?
I don't know. It'll
But,
be a
I
link.
don't know. We'll link it.
Nobody's gonna listen and then type it.
I do that.
Really?
Why not?
That takes some
That's
skill.
easier.
Really? When you can just click on it?
I don't know. It'll be some combination of Who Knows Anyway podcast at Gmail or Who Knows Anyway. Because
Okay.
who knows anyway?
Yeah.
Right?
Really?
Does anybody actually know?
Can you know something? Ooh. So, yeah, I'm excited to get into that. Like, let's get into science, let's get into politics, let's get into everything, like,
Mental health.
yeah, climate change, abortion, women's rights, like, music, art, philosophy, movies.
Whatever tickles our fancy.
Yeah, and I'm tickled by quite a lot. So we can talk about some things.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. Sorry about the glitch with the camera if you're watching on YouTube.
You did? Yep.
We're going to try and... We got a janky setup. So
there's kind of nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, so...
It might just kind of be like that. And also, I don't want to damage this thing that we don't own.
I know. So anyway, thanks for watching. Send us an email, DM us. Let us know if there are specific things you guys want us to talk about.
Yeah, I'll talk about it.
We'll see you in the next
It's off.
video. Oh, oops.
It wouldn't
Duh.
even turn back on.
Wow. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. I'm Nina,
And I'm Ivan,
and this is Who Knows Anyway.
signing off.
Bye.